If you were to think of some of the best games from 2007, you probably say Halo 3 or Super Mario Galaxy or Assassin's Creed or Code Lyoko Quest for Infinity. Oh, is it just me? Games based on existing intellectual properties are commonly called licensed games. In recent years, we've seen a number of very well-received licensed games like Marvel's Spider-Man, Dragon Ball FighterZ, and Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order. But back in the 2000s, oh boy, licensed games were a little different. Licensed games had a horrible reputation back in the 2000s and the early 2010s. There were countless half-finished video games based on kids' TV series that were pumped out quicker than the latest Call of Duty and NBA 2K release in order to make a quick buck. Kids are stupid after all, so might as well take advantage of their parents' wallets. But today, I wanted to see if that reputation of horrendously putrid games is deserved or not. Today, I want to see if licensed games from the 2000s are really that bad. However, this video has a twist. It would be easy to go to a pawn shop and buy a ton of bad licensed games to make a funny YouTube video. So instead, in order to make this video as authentic as possible, I'm gonna be playing some of the licensed games that I actually had as a youngster. First up is 2005's Ed, Edd n Eddy The Misadventures, developed by Artificial Mind and Movement, although this company is now better known as Behavior Interactive, who you may know as the developers of the popular multiplayer horror game Dead by Daylight. The Misadventures actually has two versions, a 3D action-adventure game released on GameCube, PC, PlayStation 2, and Xbox, and a 2D platformer released on Game Boy Advance. The 3D version does have a bit of a following, but I've heard next to no one talk about the GBA version, so let's check out the handheld version. Obviously, this game is based on the incredibly popular 1999 Cartoon Network animated series created by Danny Antonucci, Ed, Edd n Eddy, which is about a bunch of boys all with Ed in their names who routinely try to scam the other kids in their neighborhood so they can buy sweet jawbreakers. And the game story is basically the same thing. It's just a bunch of short adventures that the Eds go on as they try to scam their neighbors. But I really like this, as it makes the game feel like a bunch of episodes from the show. Visually, this game does a good job at replicating the show too. Despite being limited to a tiny GBA screen, the pixel art manages to capture all of the personality and charm of the series. The music can get a bit repetitive, but it too sounds like the swing-style jazz that the show uses a lot of. Stylistically, I think the 3D version of the game does a better job at replicating the show's feel from the way it uses the same wiggling line art effect that's seen in the show on the game's 3D models, which is really awesome. There's also the fact that this version has voice acting, specifically the voice actors from the show reprising their roles, but from a gameplay perspective, I actually had more fun with the GBA version. It's a simple 2D platformer, but it gets the job done really well. This version of the game feels more polished and the controls are more responsive than the console version. You can switch between the three Eds at any time and each character has their own unique abilities. Like for example, Double D can shoot water balloons, Eddie can make this tower to reach high places, and Ed can beat enemies into the ground with his head. Scattered around the levels are secret jawbreakers you can find, and also you can collect money in this game to buy certain other jawbreakers too. However, I wouldn't really say this game is a collectathon, mostly because the jawbreakers don't do anything aside from being neat little items to find. I don't know what you get from collecting them all. I have 99% completion in this game. There's only one more jawbreaker I need to find, but that will require me looking through every nook and cranny of every level, which I just can't justify doing as a grown man. But overall, it's a really fun game. When it comes to licensed games, one of the most respected ones is Spongebob Battle for Bikini Bottom. It even got a remake, which is like mac and cheese getting a remake, it just doesn't happen. Now, I didn't grow up with Battle for Bikini Bottom, but I did grow up with the title that the developers of the game, Heavy Iron Studios, made after Battle for Bikini Bottom. 2004's The SpongeBob SquarePants movie game, based on the SpongeBob SquarePants movie, also released in 2004, which is based on Nickelodeon's SpongeBob SquarePants animated series created by Steven Hillenburg in 1999, which is a comedy series about a sponge who works as a fry cook at a burger restaurant and the various other sea creatures in the town of Bikini Bottom where he lives. The movie is about SpongeBob trying to save his boss, Mr. Krabs, who was frozen in ice by King Neptune thanks to the evil Plankton, who hatched a scheme called Plan Z to take over Bikini Bottom, and the game's story is a broad strokes version of the movie's plot. Okay, now that we've gotten all the recap out of the way, The game itself is a 3D platformer like Battle for Bikini Bottom. In fact, I'm pretty sure the game is running on a very similar engine, if not the very same engine. The game is a collectathon like Super Mario 64, but instead of collecting stars, you collect Goofy Goober tokens. You can get these tokens by completing multiple different missions in each level, from simply completing the stage, to completing a combat challenge, to more unique platforming challenges. This is a surprisingly really good 3D platformer. The characters control pretty smoothly, and they each have their own unique abilities like Patrick's cartwheel or Spongebob's bash uppercut.
You've got enough Goofy Goober tokens for me to teach you a new ability. It's called the Smash.
What's even better is that you can upgrade these abilities by collecting these weights scattered around the level to fill up this upgrade meter. For a game made in 2005, it has better quality of life features than games I've seen released these days, like how you can warp between levels at any time. But not only that, you can warp straight to the specific challenge you want to do, which removes a ton of backtracking and downtime. In terms of design, I did compare this game to Super Mario 64 earlier, however, this game has a much more linear design, which I don't mind. This makes it a much more straightforward and focused experience. The game does have some other gameplay styles like these sliding sections and sections where you drive the paddy wagon car, and they're fine, but the most fun are definitely the 3D platforming levels. I feel like later in the game when they start requiring you to have a certain amount of Goofy Goober tokens in order to progress, does kind of slow down the pace of the game, as you'll have to replay levels, and not all of the challenges where you can earn Goofy Goober tokens are the most interesting. All in all though, this is a really fun 3D platformer that I actually had a bit of trouble putting down. My only major complaint with the game is that the cartoon cutscenes are a major letdown. It would have been cool to get actual scenes from the movie, but instead we have these lame PowerPoint presentation looking things. Thankfully, the in-game cutscenes are actually really good. There's some surprisingly good directing and shot composition here. And what's even better is that the actual voice actors from the show reprise their roles here, which is always nice. And speaking of audio, this game has a great soundtrack. It's way better than it has any business being. The SpongeBob movie game is definitely a keeper. Okay, so we've talked about a Cartoon Network game, we've talked about a Nickelodeon game, so I only think it's right to talk about a Disney Channel game. These three networks were the Triforce of cartoons in my childhood, the big three that kept me comfy after school. Unfortunately, I don't have, or at the very least, I can't find any licensed games that I have based on Disney Channel properties, but I do have a game that was based on a Disney-owned property, 2004's Power Rangers Dino Thunder, developed by Pacific Coast Power and Light, who are known for making nothing, really. They don't have a resume that exactly pops off the page, unless you really can't get enough of MX Superfly featuring Ricky Carmichael. But hey, who knows? Maybe Power Rangers Dino Thunder is their masterpiece, a hidden gem lost to time. This game is a piece of
Whoa, slow down, Connor.
So, Power Rangers has a somewhat complex history, but in short, Power Rangers is essentially the Americanized version of the super popular Super Sentai live-action Japanese superhero franchise created by the super influential manga artist Shotaro Ishinomori. Dino Thunder is based on Bakuryu Sentai Abaranger, the 27th series in the Super Sentai franchise. The Super Sentai franchise began in 1975, and since 1979, the franchise has had a new series every single year. That's 44 years straight. That is amazing. In this game, you control the Power Rangers Zords, which are these huge robots that they pilot. This game is a 3D action-adventure game with some platforming as well. You can switch between the Zords at any time, and each of the Zords have their own abilities, like a blue one that's fast, a yellow one that can fly, and a red one that's really strong. Where have I heard this before? Like I said before, this game is not good. I ain't gonna sugarcoat it. The multiple playable characters are cool, but actually playing as those characters is really boring. The levels are so lifeless and uninspired. Power Rangers is this super over-the-top, colorful, silly show, but you wouldn't know it from playing this game. There is some variety in the level types, but all of the missions you do are basically the exact same. Just destroy X amount of bad things. Oh, sorry, there is one other type of mission. Escort missions. Because everyone loves those. Okay, so the missions are bad, but what about the boss battles? You get to play as the Megazord, a combination of all of the Power Ranger Zords into one big machine of destruction. That's gotta be cool, right? Okay, the sarcasm is getting old. Yeah, the boss fights suck too. Well, who knows? Maybe the later boss fights are fun. I wouldn't know. I had to put the game down after this. The Megazord is so slow, so unresponsive to control, and geez, there's just like way too many enemies scattered around for me to actually enjoy the fight. I gotta say, the enemies in this game are some of the most annoying enemies I've seen in a video game. You've got these lobbers that throw these energy balls at you, and these guys have the best aim I have ever seen in my life. They need to be playing for like the MLB or something. I'll be minding my own business, and suddenly I'm getting sniped by these jerks just out of nowhere. You've got these ice dudes that can freeze you, stopping you right in your tracks, and the most annoying of all, these time warpers that send you all the way back to the starting point of the level. Yeah, I'm just gonna quit while I'm ahead. I hate to end this video off on a bad note, but that's life.
Whoa.
Even if I had to play Power Rangers Dino Thunder, I still got to play 2 surprisingly fun games, so hey, I can't complain too much. There are plenty of licensed games out there from the 2000s that I can check out, so stay tuned for next time.